My name is Bruno Sade from brunosade.com, and today we are joined by my dog Gina that you can see in the bottom right corner of the screen. She's resting there. And today I want to talk about how to do a round of basic EFT. Basically, EFT, as you know, emotional freedom techniques, is a set of techniques that help us diminish or release our unpleasant emotional reactions to something that we might be thinking about or experiencing. So EFT works best the more specific and laser focused we can be when we are doing the tapping, right? So one way, or the easiest way to be specific with what we are focusing on while we tap, is to come up with specific events, in other words, with specific things that have happened or that might happen, right? So for example, maybe it's remembering the argument that I had with my friend the other day, or it might be thinking about my upcoming presentation at work that makes me feel nervous. So that would be a future event. And the previous one was like a recent event. It's always safer and gentler and easier to start with recent or future events. And then we kind of ask ourselves, what feeling or sensation or emotion is coming up for me as I think about, for example, my upcoming presentation at work, right? And so I might notice that the feeling that comes up is nervousness. And I might even ask myself, that nervousness, am I feeling it anywhere in my body? And I might notice that perhaps I'm feeling it in my throat, or perhaps there's no location in the body, and that's also okay. We can always work with whatever level of awareness is available to us. So don't stress if any of these questions you find it like hard to answer, or there's no easy answer coming in. So then basically these would be the ingredients, right? To do a round of tapping. We have a specific event, my upcoming presentation at work tomorrow. And I'm feeling in response to that, or when I think about that, I am feeling this nervousness and I'm feeling it in my throat. There's one extra ingredient that I think really helps, which is known as the gold nugget, which is basically what part of this event, of this upcoming presentation at work, what aspect of it is my mind focusing on the most that makes me feel nervous, or that makes me feel the most nervous about, right? So for example, maybe it's the idea that my boss is gonna be there watching me or hearing me, and my boss is gonna be evaluating me, and that's what makes me the most nervous, right? So then in order to do the round of tapping, we're going to start tapping on the side of the hand with either hand, either side. You can switch if your arm becomes tired, that's also okay. And we're going to repeat, we're going to come up with what is known as a setup statement, and we're going to repeat it 3 times. Basically, we're going to start with even though, just thinking about my upcoming presentation at work tomorrow, and my boss is going to be there evaluating me, makes me feel this nervousness in my throat. And then we're going to add a sort of like balancing statement, or a sort of self-acceptance statement, something along those lines. So for example, and despite that, I accept this is what I'm feeling right now. And we're going to again repeat the same statement as before, even though, just thinking about my upcoming presentation at work tomorrow, and my boss is going to be there evaluating me. When I think about that, I feel this nervousness in my throat, and I accept this is what I'm feeling right now. And again, even though, just thinking about my upcoming presentation at work, my boss is going to be there evaluating me. And when I think about that, I feel this nervousness in my throat. And then we're going to, the rest of the points for the round, and we're just going to name like a reminder phrase to keep us focused on what we are tapping on. So for example, this is the top of the head. We're going to say this nervousness in my throat, and beginning of the eyebrow, this nervousness in my throat, and side of the eye, this nervousness in my throat, under the eye, this nervousness in my throat, under the nose, this nervousness in my throat, chin point, this nervousness in my throat. Then on the collarbone, this nervousness in my throat. And finally, under the arm, this nervousness in my throat. And then I'm gonna reassess what is coming up for me next, or what is coming up for me now when I think about my upcoming presentation at work. Because chances are, especially when I ask myself what part of it am I focusing on the most and how does that make me feel, chances are it's gonna be a bit different than before, right? So for example, maybe now, again, as I reassess and think about my upcoming presentation at work, suddenly my mind isn't so much focused on the fact that my boss is going to be there evaluating me, but now it's kind of like shifting into another aspect, and it's kind of like, what if I stutter while giving my presentation? And when I think about what if I stutter, how do I feel about that now? Well, thinking about what if I stutter tomorrow in front of everyone at this presentation at my work makes me feel afraid. And this fear, I feel it, for example, in my chest. So then the next round would be, even though, just thinking about this presentation at work tomorrow, and what if I stutter? When I think about that, I feel this fear in my chest. And I accept this is what I'm feeling right now. And we repeat that statement 2 more times. And then we go to the rest of the points and we say, we can tap either with one hand or two hands, or either one hand. So again, don't worry about that. EFT is a very forgiving and flexible technique. And we can say this fear in my chest, this fear in my chest. We could even repeat that gold nugget statement, that most important aspect of the round, like, what if I stutter? What if I stutter? This fear in my chest, thinking, what if I stutter? What if I stutter? And again, after this round, I reassess what is coming up for me now as I think about my presentation at work tomorrow. And then maybe, perhaps a memory could show up, like suddenly I'm remembering something else that's connected to this fear or this nervousness about my presentation at work. Or perhaps I could have what is known as a cognitive shift, which is like a spontaneous change in the way I'm perceiving the situation. So kind of like saying, oh, well, actually, I know that my boss thinks highly of me, so I think it's going to be okay. And if I stutter, no big deal. Most people stutter when they are a bit nervous, and it's kind of expected. Or maybe I won't even stutter, and that's okay. So something like a spontaneous and positive change in the way I'm seeing the situation. So that's basically how you do a basic EFT. So to recap, you come up with a specific event, something specific that has happened or that might happen. Then you notice how you feel in response to that, what feeling or emotion or sensation is coming up for you as you think about that, and if you feel it anywhere in your body. And then you add this extra question, which is, what aspect of it or what part of it is my mind focusing on the most? That makes me feel, for example, nervous, angry, anxious, afraid, embarrassed, etc. And you add that element into the round, because that helps you be even more specific. And it helps you also detect after each round that now actually, this aspect of everyone is going to be there watching me, or my boss is going to be there evaluating me, suddenly doesn't matter so much anymore, doesn't feel so intense anymore. But now there's this other aspect of, what if I stutter? Or now there's this memory connected to it that is important for me to tap on as the next layer of the onion, right? So it's like we are uncovering the different layers of the onion connected to whatever issue we are working on. So I hope this video was helpful to you, and I'll see you again in my next video.